I hate you guys.
All right, we're going.
All right. Well, welcome to Tulsa Uncut. We have the one and the only Jamie Miller. Whoop. Hey,
Welcome.
girl.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
So, Jamie, tell us about Jamie. So loaded, right?
I've been waiting a lot, like half
whole
my life
life.
to hear that. Thank you for asking. Honestly, I would love to tell you. Well, Jamie Miller is married to Jason Miller. We live in Broken Arrow and are raising 2 girls on 5 acres in the middle of town, about to build a house.
Do you have chickens?
Are you?
We used to. The coyotes have a strong game where we are.
What do you do to combat them?
Combat the coyotes, just
Don't
not
have
have
chickens.
chickens.
Yeah, I guess so.
It was simple strategy.
I have a buddy that has a lot of chickens on like 10 acres, and he's just always at war with coyotes
Well,
and raccoons.
my favorite animal is a donkey, which you don't hear that very often. But if you really think about it, they may be your favorite animal as well.
Why is a donkey your favorite animal?
Well, they have eyelashes, and I like animals that have eyelashes, but they're also like not big and scary like a horse, because horses are like majestic. So I feel like donkeys kind of are too, but they're just little.
In their
I'm
own
not
little way.
afraid of
In
them.
a cute way.
Yeah, I'm really intimidated by tall people, and so animals, I feel the same. Yeah, especially redheaded tall people.
If you didn't have a velvet shirt on,
yeah, that it really equalized you for
Yeah.
me.
it makes you feel soft and cuddly.
Your reasoning for liking donkeys is kind of true. I don't really understand that.
Well,
Have eyelashes.
they're
Eyelashes.
It made me think, what animals have eyelashes actually?
horses, giraffes, yeah, but they're very big.
They are very well. They're not very big. They have very big necks.
But
and
if they had
legs.
velvet fur.
Yeah, well, donkeys do. They have great fur. Donkeys are really soft. You can still ride on a donkey. It's useful, and it's emotional. It likes you. Like donkeys will act like a dog. So donkeys, I've never had one, but it's my goal. Yeah.
I bet that they could take on a coyote.
They do. So donkeys will combat larger, like predatory
So
animals.
you need to get a donkey.
So the donkeys is necessary in a lot of ways.
So this is
Yeah, but llamas spit, and they're also very tall.
Yeah,
I don't like them.
they need to.
I don't like
They must not meet or exceed her eye line. It's a
It
threat.
needs to be a certain stature. Yeah.
She's like, I need a little burro.
Yeah.
Just very small.
Yes.
Give me
My-
the miniature one.
My husband and I own a statuary company in Broken Arrow, and my old time goal is to get a mold of the donkey that like carries the little trailer. That's usually in a lot of grandma's front
Right.
yards. Yeah, I want to get
My grandma had one actually in
Yeah.
her front yard. I mean,
A
it's whole
donkey
thing.
statue.
She did.
that. I know.
The donkey pulling the wagon behind it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Okay, so you're terrified of big animals.
I wouldn't say terrified. I mean, I act cool, but I'm uncomfortable.
Like,
Yeah.
man, would you like to get on a camel?
I really would not. I have no desire.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a run-in with a camel at the zoo when my daughter was really little, and I was holding her, and they were like loading kids up to ride on the donkey. So I thought not the donkey. See, I want it to be a donkey. It's a camel. I thought the camel was cool because the adults were putting the kids on top of it. So the camel comes over to us. And my daughter reaches up, and the camel clamped down with his big O teeth. This is also why I don't like tall animals. They have big teeth, and I had to like put my hand in the camel's mouth and like get my daughter's hand out of it. So
Jesus.
not a fan of
brave. That was very brave
Yeah.
of you.
it was reactionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like, I didn't even know what I was thinking. It just happened.
Yeah, laid myself on the line. Yeah.
This may be one of the most unique conversations I've ever had.
Oh,
And we're just getting started.
Very specific.
I
It's
appreciate that.
interesting.
Ramping up.
Yeah.
Okay, so
You said get to know Jamie, so welcome to my head.
Here we go. Is everyone
Fair.
buckled up?
You started off with, I'm married to this person. I like donkeys.
Yeah.
What
It
do
was
you-
like
tell us about your
very
donkey. Let's
even.
straight into
You know, I married my husband, but I may love donkeys more.
I feel like you have justification now with your husband. You should get a donkey.
Yeah.
Like for the chicken's sake.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
and
your
just
happiness.
I think that a lot rides on that. Yeah.
But
Literally.
we could put a chicken coop on the back of the donkey. It's fine. He can support the weight.
We can celebrate Palm Sunday and we can have someone act like Jesus and ride on the back of him. I like that too.
True story.
Yeah, he rode on donkeys a lot.
And
so.
also, you could get a little
very
wagon that you
princely.
hitch to him, and it's now a grocery, from getting the groceries from your vehicle into the home.
I like that idea.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Like a
feel like-
Costco wagon.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Yes.
I've never had one of those, but I've always wanted one of those.
But it's like a jackass wagon for
Mhm.
groceries.
What would you name him?
Jack.
I don't know if it would be a boy.
Oh, you want a female?
Yeah, probably.
Female donkey.
Jacqueline.
Jill.
This is Jill.
Jacqueline.
I don't know.
Did
I
that make
haven't
it
thought about
girly?
her name. I feel like maybe it's Brittany or something weird.
Yeah, it would need to be something like that.
Pam,
Britney Spears.
Karen. We call it Karen.
Karen, super mouthy. Yeah, just yells at everybody.
Okay, so what does Jamie do? What is your
So-
occupation?
My occupation can be said a lot of different ways. My official title is donor, developer, and funding coordinator, but that's really boring, so I don't say that very often. I help fund programs for children who have survived sex trafficking, but also I fund our prevention programs, which is any way that we can protect kids from ever being victimized from sex crimes, which is more often than not. It's one of the top growing crimes in our community. And our kids are participating in it on a daily basis because they have technology. So we educate kids on how to not fall victim to being groomed, but also like how to not be a predator, because our society's breeding both.
Okay.
And so we're combating that. We call it the war on innocence.
I guess you wouldn't think about that. Like, just as much as we need to focus on, not teaching kids not to be vulnerable to stuff like that, those same kids in the population will grow up to be predators too.
Yeah,
So you have to
yeah.
also think about that.
Well,
it's not like a foreign alien breed of people. It's
yeah, no,
humans.
and they, we want to protect kids. And so just because they're now a predator at 20, 24, 55, like they were once a kid.
Mhm.
So like, what are we doing to protect their childhood? Because their lives are intersecting
Right.
at victim and predator.
Right.
But at one time they were children, or possibly, one of those is still a child,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that really stemmed from like when I first got into this fight 13 years ago. Most people's sentiment is like, let's kill the pedophile, right? Like
Yeah.
you can rally
Yeah.
up a team for
Usually,
that. Like people cheer for that,
Usually
right?
my stance, yeah.
Yeah, it was especially for men because they hear about this problem and then they have this massive need to fight.
Yeah.
And so we've created solutions for men to make a difference without going and busting down the door, because we live in the United States. We can't get a group of ex-Navy SEALs together to go bust down doors in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because what it does is it drives the demand for kids higher,
Mm-hmm.
right? You start buying. Why can't we just go buy all the kids? Because they're going to go find more kids.
Yeah.
We're dealing with 500,000 kids in our country every year that are being trafficked.
I was about to say, so, it's weird to think of it like this, but how big is that industry? Like,
Yeah.
is it a $1 billion
Yeah.
a year industry?
It's estimated 51 billion national or globally,
Okay.
human
so
trafficking and sex trafficking. So
that's how you have to look at it when you approach it, I guess.
fastest growing crime next to, it's right there with drugs and gun dealing and all of that kind of stuff. And the biggest issue that we have right now in our country when it comes to the crime is how high of the demand for sex with kids, right? So like, we've got to look at, why do we have such a high demand for people to have sex with kids? Like, is this a new crime? No, but why is it growing so rapidly?
Right.
Right.
And so when we say we're combating human trafficking, we have to go to the source, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a lot of reactive things. I mean, we're serving girls 11 to 17 years old who have survived this crime. We have the nation's largest safe house for children. You would be shocked to know that there are 3,000 beds for adults who have survived this crime in the entire country.
That's
3,000 beds. And when I say beds, that is a safe house term. That's the term that they use. And basically it is a program only for those types of people. This is not domestic violence. This is not drug addiction. This is surviving a crime like no other crime, right? So the healing process, you can't put a kid that has some sexual trauma up against a kid that's been trafficked for 4 years, 6 years, by their parents, since they were 9 years old. Like, totally different trauma that we're dealing with. It's the hardest, messiest trauma that you can imagine what we're doing with these kids.
So it's not necessarily like the situation. I think a lot of people think, you know, when someone's sex trafficked, that they're like snatched up from a store or a mall or a thing. Like you're saying, there's also a lot of situations where parents are actually doing it. They're behind.
More so than not.
Wow.
Yeah. So from that national average, 40% of those kids are trafficked by their family members. So that's called familia trafficking. You're looking at 10% or less of kids that are actually taken out of that 500,000.
That's what people think of.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Well, it's been sensationalized. I mean, it's
Movies
a lot better sell, you know, and I think that's the thing too with like back to the pedophile thing, just to share with people what I've learned in this fight is that, you know, God told me, if you've got hate in your heart for these pedophiles, like, do you not think that I was enough for them? Like, he took me through this like healing place for those people because I had to shine light on the darkness. And if I was hating on somebody, like, he's like, you need it to be all light, basically. And just to go back to the teaching kids how to recognize these traits is because we've got so many girls that come forward after these presentations. We've already talked to 1,200 kids this year in the past, like, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I don't even know what day it is, but yeah, we have girls come up to us and they're like, I'm being raped by my boyfriend. And it's like, how do they even know that that's a thing? It's a thing, right? But they're being told that that's normal, that that's how you're loved. But so it takes one truth to cover up all those lies, to uncover it all. And so we just want to tell kids, we want to empower them. Even at 3rd grade, we have a program for kids of, you know, it's sending inappropriate pictures. Like, they're not being taught this because us as parents of these generations, we're giving kids technology that's educating them way beyond the conversations that we ever had when we were growing up at that age. So we have really hard time talking to our kids. And so the Demand Project helps parents safeguard their kids' stuff, but also have the conversations.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What are some things, you know, what are some things parents can be aware of? What are some things parents can do, put into place? What are some things that you teach on? Let's take it first from the parent perspective. What can parents do? And then can we also discuss what words can we use for our kids? Like, how do we help the kids become aware? You know, as far as in our own homes, like, what do we look for? What are the signs? How do we know?
Wow. Okay, I could chunk that up a lot.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be, you know, picky with the things that I talk about in this little moment of time, but parents, get your kids off Snapchat.
Snapchat, specifically?
Snapchat breeds so many negative. I mean, it is the top app for suicidal ideology. It's the top app for sending nudes. It's the top app for any and everything as a parent you don't want your kids going through. It is such an easy platform for them to be exposed to a really gross world. Almost every pedophile here in Tulsa that has been arrested moves the conversation to Snapchat.
Is it because it goes away?
Because it's end-to-end encryption. And because he knows the kid has it.
Yeah.
And it's got tracking. You can tell where people are. There's a lot of apps that you can safeguard. Snapchat is one of those for me. And our organization I don't even think teaches it that crazy, but that's just me. Like, don't, because it's proven over and over and over again. Like, don't show up doing the same thing expecting a different output. It's kind of like that conversation about being shocked about the Grammys and being shocked about halftime. You know, it's like, stop being shocked. Like, do what it takes to protect your kids.
Proactive.
Like, this is about protecting your kids. You know, we've got more information about how to install a car seat then we're caring about a whole entire iPad that we're giving our kid at 2 years old,
Mm-hmm.
access to the entire world, right? Like we've got to safeguard our kids. We've got to really cut down on screen time. We've got to get off our own damn phones, and care more about being in the moment and teaching our kids how to do the things we got to learn growing up,
Yeah.
right? Our kids are missing out on a lot of things.
Do you have a TikTok?
No.
Good for you.
No. And that's another one. I mean, the thing with that is that as innocent as it is, you know, there's a mom here in Tulsa called me on Thursday night and she said, Jamie, did you see the video I posted of my 11-year-old yesterday? I said, oh yeah, it was so cute. She was washing her face. She had, you know, her t-shirt on, she had her headband on, she was washing her face and she wanted to show her friends. Well, this mom whose Facebook is locked down or Instagram's locked down, she didn't realize that because she turned it into a reel that it went public. And there was a guy that commented on it and he said, pass or smash, pedophile style, I'll go first.
What?
Yeah, I mean, this is so normal. You can go to any 13-year-old's Instagram account, any of these girls that dance on TikTok and they've got 1 million followers, go look at the comments. They're all older men talking about them sexually. And these parents, these accounts are ran by their parents, yet this is what they're allowing to happen on their kids' accounts, right? You know, and it's sad. And if we want to combat it from a parent's perspective, we've got to really dig into what our kids are participating in this metaverse, right? Like, I mean, the whole point is for everybody to stay home and be miserable and hate themselves and be lazy and hang out online. Like, let's not let that happen.
Yeah.
Like, we're better than that. Like, we're 80s, 90s kids. Like, we can do better than that, you know?
I mean, like, we played outside until dark, and that's
we
just what
did so many cool, fun things that I mean, I know that that's maybe a little minimalist and, you know, kind of crunchy way of thinking, which I love all those things, but it's like, there's plenty of times for your kids to be normal and, like, fit in and, like, don't let it be high school.
Yeah.
Don't peak in high school.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You know, like, let your kids be weird and let them hate you. They've got the whole rest of their lives. And I promise you, high school is not the place to peak. Like, let's dream for bigger things. And so safeguarding our kids, but also simple things like don't let the phone go in the bathroom. The phone goes on your nightstand at 9 p.m. every single night. And if it doesn't, you've got set consequences that definitely will happen. Smartphone contract. We have a contract that we give out to parents that says, this is my phone that you're using, right? This isn't your phone, because how many teenagers it's their actual phone? Zero.
Right, and no job.
Yeah, no responsibilities. But here, have access to the whole world. Go spend your entire life with this whole, you know, fake relationship world that we know is fake, but we've, you know, because we got to participate without it. But it's having that contract and making sure it's not their whole life. Like,
for sure.
I mean, teenagers are snapping how many millions of Snapchats a year? I mean, just their whole life is consumed. And then we want to know why, you know, all those younger than us, you know, in their, you know, 20s, like, can't keep a job. And it's like, well, because they've never done anything hard. They've never
they can't
fought
run
for
their
anything.
Snapchat streaks.
Right.
You can't streak if you're working a 40-hour-a-week job.
Right.
Which I didn't even know what that really meant until I figured that one out. And I was like, oh, like, streaking for my generation meant something different. But is it really different? Maybe
No.
not.
Well, they're, you know, the kids in the United States are the largest producers and distributors of child sexual abuse material.
Wow.
Because it's of themselves and their friends.
They're providing the content.
Which is downloaded. Child sexual abuse material files are downloaded at about 50,000 per minute in the United States.
That, like, made my skin crawl.
Right. So we've got this combating of technology and distribution and you know, familiar traffic. I mean, we've got all of these massive issues, and like, we could talk about the pornography issue driving the demand for sex with kids for hours.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot that goes into that. But I also think that's a way to empower men and women, because the addiction is totally almost 50-50 at this point for generations that are 20-year-olds and younger.
Wow.
but 77% of professing Christians are viewing pornography at least once a week. Right? So
Wow.
where our standard now is normal. That's
Yeah.
a normal thing for a lot of people to participate in. I even heard 53% of Christian pastors admit viewing pornography at least once a month. And so how to combat human trafficking? Stop watching porn.
That's a step one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost 100% of people
Eliminate that
in those
demand.
videos, it's not their consent. So human trafficking is anything you being forced, fraud, or coerced into doing. That's what being trafficked means.
That was like one thing I planned to ask you is what is trafficking? Because I feel like everyone, kind of like you said, the I wouldn't say romanticized version of it. Sensationalized, yeah. Is like someone like grabbing somebody
Yeah.
into a van or whatever, but like what is it actually? Like what is trafficking technically?
It's like when you look at human trafficking as an umbrella, you have labor and you have sex trafficking, right? That's the two things that human trafficking represents. We have a lot of forced labor trafficking in the United States.
What does that
Tons.
mean?
So that means that you have, a lot of times as foreigners, they have been brought into our country, and because of their lack of citizenship, they are told that they have to work. It's modern day slavery, right? That they are owned by this grow farm or owned by, I mean, we're seeing it in tons of different industries.
Okay.
I mean, anything manufacturing, farming, anything that can be really hidden, the working hidden. There are a lot of labor trafficking in the United States. So we can serve those people as well, the Demand Project. So we have a recovery department that works with law enforcement and getting people resources across the country. So we've spent the last 10 years, we're 10 years old this year, building a resource directory that serves trafficking survivors, whether that's labor or sex, all ages, just across the country. But that is something you're being forced, fraud, or coerced into trading services for money. And so in labor, you know what that means. And then of course in sex trafficking, I mean, you're being serially raped. And, the uncomfortable truth about what we do and the people we serve is how young it starts and how high the numbers are of abuse. It's shocking.
Like, I don't even want to ask.
And the
what I mean?
type
I'm like,
of people that are the abusers, like where it used to be our generation, like the Amber Alert was created when I was in 5th grade. I will never forget it. But it was the guy in the van, the mustache. I mean, the mustaches are back. I'm not complaining
are
about
back.
that, by the way. I think it was like my 80s.
You guys don't
daddy
have to go
issues.
shave. Don't worry.
Yeah,
It's fine.
no. The mustaches. I'm team mustache. But it had a profile. Like we knew what a pedophile looked like. Like, Unsolved Mysteries. They had
Yes,
sketched
the
the
glasses,
pedophile.
I mean, yeah, we know what it
We
is.
knew what he looked
Yeah.
like. Now, I mean, the predators are not only getting younger, but all different types of people, classes. I mean, from the oldest, grossest to the youngest, best looking, every nationality in between, every age in between. I mean, I would say 40% of those who are seeking sex with children are late 20s to early 40s. Men, a lot of times with children. It's a really big
cannot
issue.
even
I
wrap my
mean,
head around
and
it.
there's no,
I can't.
It's so
She's
it's
like,
an
I'll let you
uncomfortable
guys
thing.
talk.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable to talk about.
It is. It's inconvenient.
But it's real. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like the whole point, with Tulsa Uncut, that's kind of our biggest thing is bringing out things bringing things out that are real. This is a real thing. It's a real problem. It's really important that we share that with people who may not be aware, or they may not know that there's services, or they may be aware that something is not right in whether it be their home or their friend's home or someone else. So, I mean, I do appreciate you coming and being willing to talk about that. Let's jump into are there signs? Are there some red flags, if you will? Like, what can young people specifically look for in someone who's quote grooming or prepping? Because I assume that it may be something that's done over time.
Yeah, they're very committed.
Okay.
So one of the co-founders for the Demand Project is a Tulsa County Sheriff Detective, and he's also an Internet Crimes Against Children agent, which is like a federal agency that works more on the dark web, which we could talk about for a long time too. But one thing he does here in the Tulsa Metro is poses as a 14-year-old girl online, and he builds cases 25 years or more before he goes in for the arrest, aka the meetup. So like the Chris Hansen of Tulsa,
Right,
basically,
yeah,
except for he's actual law enforcement, and they can do something about locking these guys up. So the great thing is that they're spending their time grooming Jason, not a 14-year-old girl,
Right.
but at the same time, as easy as it is for him to find these people, we know how rampant it is. And so there's a couple of different ways to approach online like safety when it comes to how do we notice, because a lot of what we're seeing is what's called boyfriending. That is the second highest form of trafficking. And what that is, you think about when you were 12 to 15 years old, right? When you were bored or sad or alone, like you did really stupid things, like we made up dances and we went outside,
Built a fort.
I mean, yeah, we did.
Jumped off the barn with a trash bag because I thought it would be like a parachute. It was not.
Hung from my underwear on a chain link fence around that age.
these
Yeah,
are
there were a
things we
lot of
did.
things
Yeah.
that we did. And now your normal girl that's 12 to 15 years old who has a lot more problems than we did, right? We have to admit that. A lot more problems. Her friends are cutting. Her friends are having sex. Her friends are going out with older guys. Her friends are
Vaping, drinking, yeah.
vaping. Yeah, they're doing, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Right now that they're
Wow.
dealing from 12 to 15. Well, she's sad a lot. She's probably not fitting in. She doesn't feel comfortable in her body. So where does she go when she's bored?
Online.
Online. And you have someone waiting to walk her through life.
And that's the boyfriend.
That's the boyfriending. So that's the grooming. And a lot of times these guys are going to tell you how old they are. They're going to put it right out there. I'm 41. Does that bother you? Okay, so we have conversations and conversations and conversations of pedophiles because of what Jason does. Talking to a 14-year-old girl.
It's a lot of data.
All ages, same exact conversations. Every single time. Every single one of them say the exact same things. It's literally like there's a book.
Yeah.
And they've all studied it. And this is how to become a pedophile.
Yeah.
And they're all saying the exact same things.
It makes sense. I feel like it's probably a subtle manipulation and almost convincing them that they can give consent. Because even if you're 14 or 15, if you think it's okay, like it's fine.
But I
You know what I
think
mean?
I think there's also the caveat that we live in a highly divorced world, if you will. So you've got a lot of single parents working late jobs, working all the time, exhausted, and so the kids are on the phones. And now you're talking about, I'll just go with young girls having daddy issues because their dads aren't around. They're single momming it, and I think that all those things, they're looking for that. Like, yeah, no, 41's fine. Like, what can you teach me about life? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, and it's just they capitalize on their insecurities, and they tell them how much they love them and how much that's okay. And they test the waters pretty immediately with sexual content. And, we're adults, and that types of conversation is intriguing. Like we want to at least have the conversation, or we have a hard, I'm married or I'm in a relationship. I'm not, like you're not having those inappropriate conversations, but we all know what that feels like. And you're dealing with a highly emotional 12 to 15-year-old girl who hates herself, who has no friends, who has no likes on social media, whose friends, are sleeping around with their boyfriend, and this conversation is right there for her every time she picks up her phone, because the groomers don't stop. And they often start to manipulate that time, and they immediately try to get I mean, they'll send you a dick pic in like 5 minutes. From the time they added you on a profile to if you lean into it, they're all in. Yeah, in that excitement, they're just constantly trying to take advantage and take the innocence of a kid. Like, that's part of the getting off.
I wish we could kill these people.
I know.
But we can't because you wouldn't look good in orange, so let's not. Awkward. Okay, so that's dealing with the kids. What is there a percentage? Like, let's just talk about Tulsa specific, because I've heard both sides, like that Tulsa is majorly known for this, that Tulsa is not. So what is the truth? Where are we at? What does it look like here in Tulsa?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, when we were talking about Mythbusters, I think this is a great one, because when I go out and speak in the community, it's a normal thing that I hear that Tulsa is a hot spot. Oklahoma City is a hot spot. And, you know, whenever I first heard about child trafficking in 2006, it was about Oklahoma City. And it was about the truck stops, and it was about the runaway girls, or the girls that had gotten picked up and they were being taken to the truck stops and being trafficked, right?
I've always thought that because you have the intersection of like I-35 and I-40.
Yep. Crossroads of America.
Yeah.
You know, we've got several different Midwest places like that, but 35 runs from Mexico to Canada. So for when trafficking was at its height, there was movement, right? When you think of trafficking, it's a word that it moves.
You think of mobility, like it's mobile.
And what we're dealing with now in 2023, a lot of kids aren't leaving their houses because they're being trafficked by who?
Their family.
Yeah. So a lot of the kids that we're working with, they never left their house, or they were trafficked on the weekends. They still were in youth group. They still were at school. And because of the convoluted crime when it comes to familiar trafficking, the trauma is so convoluted that they most often than not, even when they get to our campus, don't truly know they were trafficked. Because they weren't being harmed necessarily. It was so ingrained,
conditioned, if you will,
with their own family members who they loved and trusted, that it's really hard to start to unravel that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they grew up, their parents sculpting something so hideous as like normal. I mean, if that's all you know.
Well, and the vulnerabilities are often there. You mentioned that with the single family, and Oklahoma, we have very low ACE scores, which are scores that they go into the psychology of the child, and really like those dings against you are all the things like bullying and single parent home, DHS care, foster care, all those different things. And we have a really high incarceration rate of women here in Oklahoma. So we are dealing with a lot of those vulnerabilities that often lead to trafficking. But just like with Super Bowl being like the biggest trafficking day of the year, like in the same sense, it's every day in every zip code, and it's not privy to any one victim.
Yeah. Right.
Like well-meaning parents, where we see it more often than not, that, and a lot of times through that boyfriending, so you have to look, 40% of them are families, and let's say 10% of them are taken. And so we've got that vulnerability right there is just being online too much. Like, it's not about, you have both parents, you're just a normal teenager that is not fully developed in your brain, in your emotions, and then you have access to the whole world, and the whole world has access to you. Like, we're putting our kids up in a battle that they're gonna lose. Like, they're on the front lines, the ones having these conversations, the ones having these temptations, and we're not equipping them at all. Like, so it's our fault.
We're basically equipping them for the failure. And
we
the
are
exposure
statistically.
and the danger.
We have to look at what we're dealing with as a whole, and then really truly ask ourselves, do we care? Do we care? Because we all know these things, right? Like, you can have this conversation, and there's some shocking things, but more than likely you're just like, dang it. It's for real. And I've
Yeah.
got, what am I supposed to do about it? Being stricter, understanding that it can happen to you even if your kid's a great kid.
I think that just playing devil's advocate on it, I think there's also I can't shield them from everything. So
Right.
if I at least let them have these and let them experience it, teach them right and wrong, teach them, hey, this is not appropriate. If someone's sending you this kind of pic or this
Right.
kind of conversation, there is the sense of, unfortunately, as adults, we live in a meta world. Like
Yep.
that is the reality of our society as a whole unit everywhere.
Right.
So there is the side that goes, but if I shield them from this and shield them from that, and what happens when this becomes in their world and they don't even know how to navigate within that infrastructure? Because it is, can you function without TikTok, Snapchat? Sure. But really there's a lot of jobs that are based upon you being active on social media, having a social media platform, doing this. That seems to be the direction that a lot of things are going.
Yeah.
So just devil's advocate, like,
I would say get your kid a LinkedIn, get them their professional stuff, build all their professional
so
stuff.
basically I'm hireable.
I mean,
Kinda.
really though, like however we show our kids what's important, like they will thrive on that. And it's like, there's so many ways that social media is awesome. Like my girls have a YouTube channel, right? But like be the kid that's making the video, not watching the video.
Right.
Is a lot, those kids that are building content for these things, they're not sitting there watching YouTube. I can
Right.
guarantee you that.
They're working.
They're working. They're building a business. They have a plan for all of their entertainment has a plan. So I mean, like, we can do better in a lot of ways, because yes, it is necessary. I mean, look at this room. I mean, if these guys didn't sit in front of the Nintendo, or if they didn't like take computers apart and put them back together, like, would we have all these cool things?
Paxton, did you play Nintendo? Okay.
No doubt.
Did you
There's
take
no
computers apart?
Oh, darn it. Oh, 50-50.
Were you a
One and
DJ?
Were you a DJ?
Did you mix music? No.
We should have set your mic up over there.
We hear you.
But it's important. But how are we showing that it can be really healthy and that we can be with them in it?
Right.
Like it's so separate. Like, I mean, having the conversation with a girl that I mentor, like she's been out of shape that her husband's checking her phone, and I'm like, but like, you're married. Like, is that the same thing, or should y'all have separate phones, same bank account, separate phones? Like, we make our phones so much an identity of ourselves. And it's like, if we're being honest with ourselves and it's healthy, we can share it with everybody.
True.
And like, do that with your kids.
Right.
Like, do things together, like show them together, like watch certain things together so that you can coach them. I mean,
Right.
Disney is crap, and we know Disney does all kinds of horrible things, but every movie has an opportunity to talk to my kids, like,
Right.
about magic and about, like so-and-so's being mean. And so, here's,
Right.
I mean, you use those moments until they're a certain age, especially now with phones. And then it's just so appropriate for every single person in your house to be laying around on their phones all dang day. And
Yeah.
it's like, we've got to step it up and show our kids what's really important and have those healthy relationships with tech ourselves so that we can teach it.
Right.
Right? We want these things, but we've got to implement it. We've got to be the ones driving. Lead your family, like,
I love that.
electronics aren't going to be a problem. I mean, it's the same things with any kid that grew up playing sports. We didn't have time to get into a lot of trouble, because we were constantly at practice or at a game, and we were being bussed a couple hours away. I mean, we were constantly on the go.
Right.
It was the skater kids that got in trouble because all they were doing was like skating around, right? Like they
Stealing
were the
their
ones
parents' cigarettes.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. They were the ones smoking weed and
Yeah.
getting in trouble and stuff. We just didn't have time. So how do we create that in our own homes and for our kids to show what's important? And I think a lot of parents are rocking it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're doing an awesome job, but it isn't a matter of if a kid is going to be enticed online. It's just when. So you've got to have the conversation out there. Your kid, I mean, starting when my kids were like 3 years old, they knew what a tricky person was. And a tricky person wanted to hurt them. A tricky person wanted them to keep a secret. A tricky person wanted them to not tell mom and dad stuff,
I
right?
like
Like
that.
a tricky
I
person.
love that.
I'm gonna
tricky
use that.
person.
I have a 4-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love
Tricky
because
person.
it's not necessarily scary, but it's a tricky person is somebody that you need to tell me about, because
Yeah.
then we get to figure out why they're being so tricky, right? Like, and make it almost a game with that trust that you're telling them the truth, right? And the tricky person isn't going to. And then I've always shown my girls, okay, I am not the mom that is going to be writing a whole page on Facebook about some dude following me around at Hobby Lobby. I'm the mom that is like, do you need something? Why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at my kids? You don't have anything in your basket. You're at the back of the store. Do you need something?
I love it.
And then they're like, and if they're good guys, they're like, oh, I'm just looking for some paint for my wife, you know. But if it's a bad guy, 2 times I've had this happen. They ran out of the store.
Stop
Wow.
it. Seriously?
Yes, because we have made them invisible. They think they're invisible. And it's like, no, you're doing all of these tricky things. So I'll tell my girls, look, this guy may be a tricky guy. And they're like, oh. And they know tricky is, we've also trained that's hands-on cart, because I'll let them run around the store kind of,
Yeah.
you know, like aisles in front of me. I mean, that's just, it's
That's
how
what
moms
kids
do. And we'll go crazy if we try to keep them. But if I say, girls, tricky person, they'll come and grab onto the basket, and then it's an investigation. Like,
I love
they
it,
want to
though.
know why I think that. And so it's like, hey, he doesn't have a basket. He's been in here for a little while. He's with another person. And neither one
They're
of them
following
are
us around the store.
Well, and they don't even have to be, but I'll
Yeah.
notice it. And when I notice it, I'm empowered to now teach my girls what that might look like. And then there's been situations where it did seem to be tricky. And then there's situations where it's like, oh, no, they're good. Look, see, now this is why this made me feel more comfortable, because they talked to the manager and they didn't have what they needed or whatever. And
Yeah.
they're aware and they're alert, you know?
Love that.
So,
So the demand project here, tell us about it. Like, you had mentioned several, different types of things, but impact wise,
That's a cool logo.
yeah.
yeah, the demand project, we can.
The D on
Zoom.
the shield. That's really neat.
So it was
Can you see that on the
created,
camera? That's dope.
as strategically positioned, if you
Nice.
didn't figure that part out. But
We're all
these
strategic,
are
yeah.
actually 3 2. On Watch is an organization that we've partnered with. It's an online 1-hour human trafficking prevention course that you can take, and you can print out a little certificate. It's written by survivors and is a great resource for education in the
What?
community.
What's the organization? Doesn't like Ashton Kutcher have a organization
It's called
or something?
Thorn.
Thorn. I just remember when he was like talking to Congress, and that like went viral
Yeah,
a few years ago. I think.
I have opinions about Hollywood fighting human trafficking. I think we have enough evidence to believe that
Publicity
a lot of
stunts
bad
type
guys.
stuff.
But I also have a problem with Thorn is supported by all big tech, and I also don't trust them. So anytime
So,
I'm not gonna.
what she's saying is we're not
Ashton
plugging that.
Kutcher is a bad guy. I mean, I believe him and Mila Kunis is probably my favorite couple from my childhood.
But they should come
So
support
I'm
the demand
really
project.
happy about that. Yeah.
I mean-
I have reasons to not trust in that, but
They're coming on the podcast next.
Yeah. Their next
They
lineup.
walk
I would
in.
love to have a conversation with them. I have some questions, but okay. So the Demand Project was created out of pretty much 2 people who just couldn't unhear what they heard, and it was a news story about a dad who had raped his 2-year-old daughter and videotaped it, and thousands of people logged online, not to help, but to watch. And this was in 2004, and they pretty much uprooted their family from Colorado Springs to Tulsa to go to get spiritually trained up. They knew they needed to fight it. They didn't know what it looked like. Fast forward to today, we're 10 years old as an organization. And we've been building relationships with community drivers, people that can make a difference in this fight. There are people that have a lot of authority in this fight, not just politically, but also through law enforcement. So we have great relationships with Homeland Security, U.S. Marshals. We work with National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Our CEO was on the White House board for figuring out what survivors needed here in the United States. They took 12 CEOs from the country, and she was a part of that. And so we really were bred out of necessity, out of where are the gaps. So obviously prevention, that's our proactive. We're getting in, we're trying to prevent it from ever even happening by education.
Yeah.
Then we have an in-house legal team. So we fight for justice for these kids in the courtroom, and we do it a lot of different ways. My favorite way is restorative justice. So if we have a kid, right, and they've grown up in this crime, a lot of times they've already been coerced and manipulated into being trafficked and selling their bodies, but now they're a criminal because they steal, they skip school, they fight cops, they do all of the things. And if we can prove that they were victims of human trafficking during their crime, after they, whatever they need to serve, like, we can help get their records expunged. We don't believe in them not serving the time for the things that they've done, but what happens is it stays with you forever, right? Yeah. And we can get their records expunged to where they're not felons because they were victims at the time of their crimes, right? That's huge for their future. And so investment-wise, when we are able to raise more money for the legal department, we're actually producing lifetime opportunities for these kids. And we also work with adults in that realm, and then a lot of research. So we have anywhere from 5 to 10 legal interns a semester, and there's not statistics for Oklahoma. You can't, how percentage wise, like I'll say a bunch of percentages. None of that is for Oklahoma. There's no research here. So we have teams that are constantly doing that, not only with cases that have to do with human trafficking and laws and what's coming down to the legislation and who needs to vote what matters to our clients and the people that we serve. We're also working on statistics so that people can have a better understanding of what we're dealing with here as a state. So that's really cool because it's innovative and no one else is doing it. Even in the realm of representing these clients, specifically in the courtroom, no one's doing what we're doing for kids in the legal realm, that we can find. So if you're doing it, please let us know. It'd be amazing.
How do people get involved with the Demand Project in any, what capacities can people help, and how do people get started supporting the Demand Project?
So the demandproject.org, you can look at ways you can get involved. First thing is schedule a presentation for your kid's school, for the PTA, for your Bible study, for your kids' basketball team, for their parents.
So someone will come.
Someone will come.
Give a little
So we have a whole team that does the scheduling for presentations.
That's cool.
And we first and foremost, let's just knock down the door and have the conversation and get you and your kid on the same level. Get the honesty, shine the light, give the truth. Just have the conversation. It's time. It's overdue. I promise you, if your kid is over 8 years old, conversation's overdue. Because they're already having it.
And that's online booking at thedemandproject.org.
Okay. You can find out what you can do. Our newsletter, super simple. We've got tons of events. Lori, as you know, I'm the event coordinator as well. And so get involved with sponsoring. Get your company involved with what we're doing. We need about $10 million to fully function, annually. With salaries and as many kids as we can get on our campus and as many cases as we could do in the courtroom. We ended last year at $600,000. So we've got a financial gap to close. So however you can get involved that way, giving monthly, coming to the events, supporting the community and what we're doing a fundraiser for us. I love when people are like, can I do a fundraiser for you? I was like, I would love to do that. Sarah Fry out at 181 Ranch is doing a mom prom for us in March, and then our galas in April. We've got a golf tournament every year at Walk, and then an education summit every year that people can come to, get continued education credits. That's at Tulsa Tech Langley. But really, just figure out what you're supposed to do. Everybody's being called into something, and whether that's being a better parent or being giving more as a CEO or putting your hands to something. I mean, I know New Year's, there's a lot of people that commit to volunteering. And so come out, figure out what you can get involved with and just do it. Same with having the conversation with your kids. Just do it.
Just do it.
Right?
Yeah.
You mentioned campus, so you guys have a pretty large physical place.
Yep. So we have the nation's largest campus for girls in the United States. We house 30. We can house up to 30 girls. We have 9 there now, with 4 on the waiting list. So we're waiting for financing to be able to bring these next 4.
Is it like a long-term situation, or are they there?
It's a 2-year
briefly?
program.
Oh wow! So they live there for
Yes.
2 years. Wow.
Yep.
And through that, they get therapy, counseling, kind of like readjusted to a norm.
Yeah. So we do a holistic approach to taking them from survivor to who they are going to be the rest of their life. Like we don't believe that story of that trauma is it. Like it happened to you, it's not who you are. And so we even want to get them, it's called the journey to freedom, and that freedom, that output is different for everybody. Success is different for every single kid that's out there. And so we take them through this program. I mean, it's a 17-tier program. They can graduate early, they can stay late. They sometimes have to start over.
That's okay.
Go back down to 1.
That's okay.
But it is designed to re-regulate a lot of things. As you could imagine, in the first 30 days, we re-regulate sleep, eating, and meds. Their beds are their crime scene. So sleep is really hard for these girls. And eating is often either too much freedom that they've always been given, or starvation. So figuring that out, they've been in a lot of psych wards, so they're on a lot of meds. So also traffickers don't take kids to the dentist or the eye doctor or the OBGYN. Or so in the first 30 days, they're on a lot of appointments. We also assess their education. I could tell you guys some pretty amazing stories about success in our schoolroom, just helping these kids for the first time. A lot of times just believing in themselves and applying themselves and having someone to work beside them. And then we approach all their legal cases, all their mental health, physical health. And one thing that we really need people is life skill classes. So we need anyone that is a professional that's proficient or passionate about a subject that can teach teenagers for 1 hour on a Saturday. We're looking for that, and you can sign up through our volunteer link on our website for that too. Yeah.
At thedemandproject.org. We'll just keep saying that a few more times.
Thedemandproject.org.
Well, Jamie, I want to thank you for your time,
Yeah.
Your passion and your dedication to the Demand Project and to our kids, to healing young adults, and helping them through trauma. It makes me super emotional, because I'm just the heart of what the Demand Project does speaks so loud to me.
Yeah.
And knowing that there's someone out there showing them what healthy is, and what love really is, and what trust feels like, and what you guys are doing is pivotal. So thank you for all of the countless hours, and I'm sure many sleepless nights worrying, but thank you for what you do.
For sure.
And I hope that this will earn you a donkey at some point.
I really hope.
That's what I was gonna say.
I know.
You're gonna
with
have all the
tears
sweet
in
stuff, and I was gonna mention.
I was already thinking of the donkey as well, to be honest.
I can't, tears in my eyes. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to Tulsa Uncut, and please don't forget to check out thedemandproject.org. Get involved, donate, get your companies involved, and check out the schedule and see what we have coming. It's going to be great. So take care of yourself and each other.